Hi folks, welcome to, well, it's not coffee and Colossians, it's Coke and Colossians, because I'm en route to northern Victoria. It's a 700-kilometre drive. Oh my goodness. This country just goes on forever and ever, and you know, I've driven for 4 hours and I'm still in New South Wales. Incredible. I've stopped. You'll probably hear the noise of the cars going by on the highway or the motorway or whatever it is. We're past Yaz somewhere. But I didn't want to leave any of this, and I'll be doing stuff tonight, so I thought I would do this and get it off to you as soon as possible. We're in Colossians chapter 1 and verse 21, and this now turns from describing who God is and who Jesus is to talk about us, and actually what God has done for us. But in verse 21 we read this: once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. You were alienated from God and you're enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. It's fascinating how this gets put. So I think I'll just go to Romans to kind of explain it. It doesn't say you're enemies in your minds, you were alienated because of your evil behavior. Does that mean that our evil behavior made us alienated in our minds, or were we alienated because of our evil behavior? Which comes first, in other words, the way the mind thinks? And I think it probably does. But Romans 1 puts it amazingly. So it describes the situation as it was in Paul's day, and as it is now, and as it has been since the fall and will be until Christ comes again. It says that people, for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen. So you see, for example, the trees behind me. I just love these. They tell us something about God's power and divine nature. Driving through this country tells me a great deal about God's power and divine nature. But they didn't know God. Oh, sorry. They knew God, but because they didn't glorify him as God or give thanks to him, their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. And the rest of Romans 1 goes on to say how that works out in terms of practice in all different areas of life. And we see that in our own culture. Enemies in your mind. It's not that people were neutral. It's that people hate God. It's that people hate Christ. I'm always amazed at Christians who go, well, people like Jesus, it's just they don't like the church. No, they don't like Jesus. They like an image of Jesus. They like their own image of Jesus. I think, again in Romans, if I went across to Romans 12, do not conform, verse 2, to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Because that's what we need, because in our minds we're hostile to God. There's an antipathy, there's a because of our own egoism, we're opposed to him. You know, all that hatred and stuff that you see that's poured out on social media, that's within us. Social media hasn't created that. And ultimately, that is against God. It's against our fellow human beings, but ultimately, it's against God. But the good news, as we saw yesterday, is that it was while we were still his enemies that Christ died for us, that his blood was poured out for us. So, here's the problem. Human beings are alienated from one another, but in reality, the biggest thing is that we are alienated from God. And that's the alienation that needs to be sorted. As I'm driving along, I'm listening to all different kinds of things, and you know, there are a lot of people in this country that are completely obsessed, maybe a lot, maybe it's just the people I listen to, about, oh, we've got to put the indigenous stuff right, and we need to have this voice and so on, and I'm still not sure what I think about it. I'm trying to understand it. I don't really know enough. But I do know this. I know that there's no political solution There's no voice. There's no atonement that can be made which will stop alienation between races and human beings. The key problem is our alienation from God. We get that sorted, then that's the solution for our world's problems. And that's why I think, actually, for me to tell people the gospel is far more important than all the political stuff you could be involved in. Right, listen, I am going to finish this up, and of course you get it. Apparently it's a tradition, and I like this tradition in Australia, that when you go on a road trip you have to stop at a Macca's. So I've just had my Macca's and heading away down. If you pray, please do pray for us this weekend. It's Exchange Church, if you want to look it up, in Victoria. They're having their weekend away at a conference centre. I love the fact that it's near Strathbogie. The Scots got everywhere, didn't we? Anyway, God bless you, and I hope that you will know that you're not alienated from God, and that you won't be enemies in your mind, and that our behaviour would be good rather than evil. So, this is Friday, so I won't see you till Monday. Maybe for the songs for Sunday, come along and you'll see where I am then, probably on the way back here. All right, God bless you, and see you then. Bye.